So yesterday, I did a live stream on the YouTube channel where I was answering everyone's questions in the live chat. We hung out, had a good time. Make sure y'all subscribe so you don't miss the next one. But one of the questions I got in yesterday's stream was regarding a potential Jaden Ivey trade to the Miami Heat. And honestly, I was pretty intrigued because I do kind of like the idea of Jaden Ivey in a Heat jersey. I do think he is a Heat culture type player. And then today, we actually got a report from NBA insider Brett Siegel, who said the Pistons are reportedly seeking a big upgrade and Jaden Ivey is a name to monitor for any potential moves. So, of course, a lot of Heat fans like myself got excited. I think there's several of us that would be interested in seeing Jaden Ivey in a Heat jersey. And then, as my guy Royal A. Shepard said on Twitter, "Dear Detroit, y'all already took one white shooting guard off the Miami Heat roster. Can I interest you in?" Phone dies. But, of course, he was referencing Tyler Hero. And honestly, I don't think that's a bad idea. I think there is a trade out there that could be mutually beneficial for both parties, in which the Pistons receive Tyler Hero and the Heat receive Jaden Ivey plus some other kind of assets. Because Jaden Ivey was a highly touted prospect. He was the 5th overall pick in the draft in 2022. And while you can argue that several of the players taken right after him have had a better career thus far, like Benedict Mathurin, Shaedon Sharpe, Dyson Daniels, certainly Jalen Williams at number 12, or even Jaden Ivey's teammate in Detroit, Jalen Duran, who was taken at 13, you can argue those guys have had a better career thus far in their short 3-year career. But Jaden Ivey has still been a very young, productive player that's put up some good numbers. In his 3-year career so far, he has averages of 16 points per game, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds, while shooting 43% from the field and 35% from 3 on 5 attempts a night. But last year, he was actually a much better 3-point shooter. He was at 41% from 3 on 5 attempts, which is very, very good efficiency. The catch is, it was only in 30 games played. And that's because earlier this year, on January 1st, he actually broke his fibula. But the good news is he is expected to make a full recovery by training camp, and he should be a full go by pretty soon, I think, actually. So his health, I don't think, is a huge concern, especially when you look at his first 2 years in the league. He was relatively healthy, playing 74 and 77 games respectively. So when you talk about Jaden Ivey, you're talking about someone who's a very good scorer with some decent shooting potential. I'm not saying he'll be over 40% every year of his career like he was last year, but if he can stay in the high 30s, I think that's more than acceptable for a guy of his talents. He was also pretty much an average free throw shooter for his career so far, and that's the sign of a guy who might have some upside as a shooter. But even outside of all the offensive stuff, I think he has a very high upside as a defensive player. Now, he's only 6'4", 200 pounds, which honestly is very similar measurables to Tyler Hero, but Jaden Ivey has nearly a 6'10" wingspan, which is 7 inches longer than Tyler Hero. Hey, yo, what? I know that's crazy to say, but it is true. 7-inch longer wingspan for Jaden Ivey, not to mention that he is extremely athletic. And honestly, I just love the idea of the Heat getting a guy like that in their system with these kind of tools. You put a guy with those kind of tools in the Heat development system, and I have the utmost confidence they can turn them into a special player. Because you look at what the Heat usually do, they get these undrafted guys who have a lot of grit, and they try very hard, and they turn them into pretty productive players. So imagine if they had a guy who actually had enough potential to be the 5th pick in the draft. I'm just very confident that they could turn Jaden Ivey into an excellent player. A player comp that I've seen a lot that I really love is actually someone that we talked about pretty recently, and that's Victor Oladipo. I mean, think about it. A two-way athletic guard who has some questions about their jumper, but there was certainly some years there for Oladipo prior to his injury where he was shooting the ball pretty well. So I kind of like that comparison, and I kind of would like a Victor Oladipo type player back on the Miami Heat. But instead of getting the 33-year-old Depot, why not go after Jaden Ivey, who is 11 years younger? Of course, this would likely cost you Tyler Hero, who I do like a lot, by the way, before the Hero stands come and attack me in the comments, which feel free to still do because any type of comment helps the algorithm. But before the Hero stands attack me, let me make myself clear. I do like Tyler Hero a lot. I'm a fan of his, and I think he's a really good player. But the problem is, there's a lot of questions that are surrounding him right now because he becomes extension eligible on October 1st, and the Heat have kind of mentioned that they might not be inclined to pay him max money, at least not right away. You heard Pat Riley in his postseason presser. He still says that Tyler Hero needs to prove himself. And Hero, to his credit, does seem like he has the right mindset, saying that, well, if they don't pay me now, it's just going to be more next offseason, which is telling me that he thinks he's going to get a max next offseason, which we'll see. If he has a great season and great playoffs, maybe he can. But as things stand right now, he's probably not worth that kind of money, although he thinks he is. So there's a lot of dispute there in terms of how much he wants to get paid versus how much the Heat are actually willing to pay him. I still have questions about his on-court ability, particularly when it comes to the postseason, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because in the postseason, when teams can really make a game plan, that's when Tyler Hero's defensive ineptitude is really shown. We saw him get hunted and attacked last year, and it's just kind of hard to build a winning team when your guy, your best player, is getting hunted on that often. So I have a lot of questions about Tyler Hero. I think the Heat do as well. So I do think it would be in their best benefit and maybe be the smartest move to sell him as an asset while he's at an all-time high. Right after his All-Star appearance, only 25 years old, and he still is 2 full seasons away before his extension money would even kick in. So he's not on a bad contract for at least the next 2 years, which I do think is beneficial. Plus, we just saw Desmond Bane go for 4 first-round picks. So I think Tyler Hero could go for something similar. Maybe not 4 first-round picks, but definitely multiple picks, I do think is what Tyler Hero is worth. And then for the Pistons, I think Tyler Hero would be a perfect fit on the court for Detroit. And at 25 years old, he still fits their timeline really, really well. Of course, the Pistons have Cade Cunningham as their lead guard, but the only other point guard on their team is Marcus Sasser. And then their other guards are Karis LeVert and now Duncan Robinson. And those are not exactly guys that you want handling the ball. So I do think Hero would be the perfect guy to provide some secondary ball handling for Cade Cunningham, something that the Pistons desperately need because in the playoffs last year versus the Knicks, we saw how easily they were able to blitz Cade Cunningham, especially late in the fourth quarter, which really made things hard for Cade. But the Knicks were able to do it because the Pistons really didn't have another offensive threat. So Hero provides that secondary ball handling, that secondary scoring punch that they'll need. And, of course, he provides some more spacing for Cade to attack the rim, Jalen Duren to feast inside. I just think he would be a perfect fit in Detroit. The problem is, though, Tyler Hero is getting paid $31 million this year and $33 million next year, while Jaden Ivey just makes a third of that. He's on an expiring contract for about $10 million, and then next year he would enter restricted free agency. So it would be kind of hard for the Pistons to match this salary in a Tyler Hero trade because just going through their roster, you can see here they're not going to trade Cade. I think they value Tobias Harris. They just traded for Duncan Robinson. They're not going to let go of him. You got Isaiah Stewart, who maybe they'd be willing to let go, but then they just signed Karis LeVert. I don't think they want to move him. Obviously, we're talking about Jaden Ivey, and then they're not going to trade Asar or Ron Holland or Jalen Duren. And either way, all these guys going down the roster really don't make a lot of money, so it would be kind of hard to make another $20 million up out of these salaries to put in addition with Jaden Ivey to match Tyler Hero's $30+ million. So it'd be kind of hard. It's possible a trade like this works from a salary standpoint where the Heat receive Tobias Harris and Jaden Ivey and the Pistons get Tyler Hero. But like I said, I think the Pistons like Tobias Harris. He had a good year for them last year. So if they were to send us Harris, I don't think they would also be inclined to send the draft capital that Miami would want in a Tyler Hero trade. So I don't think the Heat would do something like this, or the Pistons for that matter. And then a trade like this also works where the Heat get Karis LeVert and Jaden Ivey in exchange for Tyler Hero. But they just signed Karis LeVert. So again, I'm not sure if they would want to trade him. They might, because Tyler Hero would still be a big upgrade. But I do think that a 3-team trade makes more sense. Plus, Karis LeVert can't get traded till October 7th anyways. But I think a 3-team trade is more likely for this. The guy that I was looking at as the Pistons being the most likely to be willing to let go via trade was Isaiah Stewart. So I started thinking about teams that need a big man. I still think the Lakers could use one. I know they got DeAndre Ayton, but he's a bit soft, and I think Isaiah Stewart is the opposite of that. He's really is that hustle, gritty type of center. So I think he would fit nice on the Lakers. But then I remembered he tried to kill LeBron James once. So I don't know if LeBron would welcome Isaiah Stewart on his team, although LeBron did play with Lance Stevenson, who was one of his biggest rivals. But there's a difference between blowing in your ear and someone trying to kill you, which is kind of what Isaiah Stewart tried doing that one time. So I did a long look at all the teams that could use a backup center, but it was hard to make money work. For example, the Golden State Warriors, I think, would love Stewart, but they're so top heavy with their contracts. It was hard to make anything work. I think the Cavs could have used a backup center for Jared Allen and Mobley, but they're over the second apron, so they can't aggregate contracts. So the team that I landed on was the Memphis Grizzlies, and the 3-team trade that I cooked up was the Miami Heat receiving Brandon Clark, Jaden Ivey, and 2 first-round picks from the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are receiving Tyler Hero, and then the Grizzlies are receiving Isaiah Stewart. So we'll start with the Pistons here, where maybe this is too much value for them, potentially. I don't know if they'd want to lose Ivey and 2 second-round picks for Hero. I'm kind of unsure about how much they value Ivey, but what we do know is that they said they want an upgrade, and I think there's no doubt about it that this trade right here would upgrade the Pistons roster, and if they were ever looking to do an upgrade, this would be the year to do it, because of course you got a weakened Eastern Conference with Dame being gone now, and of course Tyrese and Tatum are out with their injuries, and as a Pistons team who just made the playoffs last year for the first time in a long time, I could see them getting excited, wanting to go all in, and really trying to win a playoff series or 2. And I think this trade would absolutely help them do that. Moving on to the Memphis Grizzlies, of course, they have Zach Edey as their starting center, but they lost Jay Huff, a player that I do like. He went over to Indiana to replace Miles Turner. The Grizzlies did sign Jacques Landale, but I don't think he's great. I think Bam gave him like 40 points one time. So what does that tell you about Jacques Landale? So I think Isaiah Stewart is a clear, massive upgrade over Jacques Landale, and I think Stewart is someone that the Pistons or that the Grizzlies could use outside of Edey and Jaren Jackson starting. Their really only backup big is Santi Aldama, who they were just able to re-sign, but he's a completely different player than Stewart. He's a good player, but he's more of a stretch big. He's not quite the gritty rebounder that Isaiah Stewart is. And plus, like we just said, I think Isaiah Stewart is Memphis culture. I think he is the definition of grit and grind, and I think that mindset has kind of slipped the Pistons a little bit over the last few years, but I think Isaiah Stewart is a guy that can kind of help them get to that team strategy, team motto, team culture, I guess. And I think he would just be a great fit there. And then from the Heat side of things, of course, you get in Jaden Ivey. You are getting 2 first-round picks. By the Heat getting the 2027 pick, getting that year alone, that allows them to unlock 4 first-round picks to be available for trade. Plus, they're obviously getting another pick here. So the Heat would have now 4 to 5 tradable first-round picks, which I think is plenty of ammo if a guy like Giannis becomes available, which is something really what the Heat should be looking to do right now. They should be prioritizing getting as many assets as possible so they actually have a chance the next time a star becomes available. And I think this would be pretty good draft capital to get in a trade for Tyler Hero. And I guess with the whole Brandon Clark thing, yeah, the Heat could use some more front court depth. You know, you lost Kyle Anderson, you lost Kevin Love. In theory, Clark could replace a little bit of what those guys did. You know, he averaged double-digit points for the first 5 years of his career prior to last year, where he only averaged 8. So he's definitely a capable player, but honestly, I don't think he's a great player. And clearly neither does Memphis because his role has been steadily decreasing. Just last year, he was under 20 minutes per game. So I don't really think Memphis would miss him too much. Will Miami even play him? Like I said, I don't know. Probably not regularly, but at the very least, he's a position of need. More so just a salary filler in this deal. I don't love that as a salary filler, he has 2 years left on his contract. But it's not a large number, you know, and it's not super long. I mean, it's just he won't be an expiring contract this year. He'll be an expiring contract next year. Not a big deal. For $12.5 million, I'd say that's a pretty tradable contract as well. And then on top of that, just in general, the Heat are shedding $9 million this year. Sending out Tyler Hero's $31 million, and then they're only taking back about $22.5 million this year. So shedding that $9 million, that will allow them to get under the luxury tax and avoid that repeaters tax. So there's some salary cap benefits here too for Miami. So you get a couple picks, you get a nice young player in Jaden Ivey. I think this would be an absolute home run for the Miami Heat. That being said, if anyone was to say no, it probably would be the Detroit Pistons. Maybe they'd be able to, or be willing to relinquish 1 pick instead of 2. If you're the Heat, do you do this same deal if it's only 1 first-round pick? Probably not. I don't think I would either, just because I'd rather get 3 first on the open market for Tyler Hero than 1 first in Jaden Ivey from the Pistons, truthfully. But I think some fans still might do that. I know there's a lot of fans out there that love Jaden Ivey. So if you can get him in a pick for Tyler Hero, and then in addition to all the salary cap stuff, I could listen to you there. I could get that logic for sure. But that's all I got to say about this video. Let me know your thoughts on this trade, and let me know your thoughts on Jaden Ivey as well. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, because all your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need that head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.